As I'm sure most of you have heard by now, after failing his physical and being placed on the IR, the Buffalo Sabres stripped Jack Eichel of the captaincy. They no longer have a captain. That whole situation just keeps getting messier and messier, but it got me thinking, I wonder who the Buffalo Sabres will name as their next captain. I mean, it probably won't happen this season, it may not even happen for a couple of seasons, but I wonder who that player is going to be. And once I got to thinking about that, I started to think about the other 6 teams aside from the Buffalo Sabres in the league that are currently captainless and who their next captain could be. So in today's video, I'm going to go through all 7 NHL teams that are currently captainless and give you guys my thoughts on who I think the best candidate to be their captain would be. And I'm also going to sprinkle in Montreal as well because their captain Shea Weber may never play another game. And I guess on that note, let's just start off with Montreal. Now, again, they're not one of the 7 teams without a captain. Their captain is Shea Weber, but again, like I said, we don't know what his future holds, if he's ever even going to play another NHL game. If that is the case with Shea Weber, then obviously in the next couple of years, Montreal will have to name a new captain, and I think the choice should be pretty obvious. I think it should be Brendan Gallagher. If I'm not mistaken, Brendan Gallagher is the longest tenured skater on the Montreal Canadiens, and I say skater because Carey Price was there before him. He's been a Montreal Canadian for his entire career thus far. He's still locked up long term as well. He's one of the hardest working players in the league. He's one of those players who wears his heart on his sleeve every time he goes out there on the ice, and he's also a pretty damn good player as well, so that definitely helps. So if the Montreal Canadiens do in fact have to name a new captain sometime within the next couple of years, I think the best choice would be Brendan Gallagher. Now getting into the 7 NHL teams that are actually currently captainless, and I guess we'll just start out with the Buffalo Sabres, and in terms of who their next captain could be, I feel like when you look at their current roster, the list of candidates is very short. In fact, here's my list of candidates actually. Number 1, Rasmus Dahlin, and that's it. That's the list. If they decide to wait 3-4 years to name a captain, and sometimes that does happen, then I feel like this list could be a little bit longer. Maybe Dylan Cousins could be in there, even a guy like Owen Power, who they just drafted first overall. But in terms of right now, I really feel like Rasmus Dahlin is the only candidate. He just signed a 3-year extension with the Buffalo Sabres worth a total of $18 million, I believe it was. He's their franchise cornerstone. He's going to be around for a very long time, and yeah, he's still very young, being only 21 years old, but he has already played 3 NHL seasons with the Sabres, and we've seen in the past that NHL teams are not afraid to name young captains. Moving on now to the Seattle Kraken, I know a lot of people think the captain is going to end up being Mark Giordano just because he was the captain for so long in Calgary. Me personally, I can't really see that happening, not because I don't think he would make a great captain for Seattle, it's only because I don't even know if he's going to be there past this season. He only has 1 year left on his deal, and even if he does re-up with Seattle at the end of the season or something like that, it would most likely be on just a 1-year deal because his career is winding down. He's 37 years old, and I feel like when you're naming the first captain in franchise history, you want it to be a guy who you know is going to be there for a long time. To me, if they do decide to name a captain within the next year or two, the perfect candidate would be Yanni Gourde, 29 years old. He's signed under contract through the 2024-25 season, so we know he's at least going to be there that long unless they trade him or something. And he's another one of those players similar to a Brendan Gallagher where he gives it 110% every single time he's on the ice. You're never going to see a player like Yanni Gourde take a shift off. He may not be the most experienced player in the world in the sense that he doesn't have, 500 plus games played. He only has 310, but he's won back-to-back Stanley Cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He knows what it takes to win. He's a player who I expect Seattle to use in all situations, obviously get a lot of ice time at 5-on-5. He's most likely to be their number 1 center, and I fully expect him to play on both special teams. So I think Yanni Gourde would make a perfect first captain for the Seattle Kraken if they do decide to name one within the next year or two, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility of them waiting maybe 2-3 years to name a captain, and then we could see a guy like Matty Beniers come in and be named a really young captain. Maybe something like that happens. The New York Rangers, a team that will actually likely be naming a captain sometime within the next couple of weeks. Back in June, their GM Chris Drury said that naming a captain is a priority, and also a couple of days ago, their coach Gerard Gallant said they're likely going to have one by opening night. For me, I think it comes down to 2 players, and those 2 players are Chris Kreider, who is currently the longest tenured member of the New York Rangers, and the other player is Mika Zibanejad, who I feel like a lot of people believe should be the next captain of the New York Rangers, and I agree with that. I think it's going to be Mika Zibanejad, and honestly, I feel like it should have happened already. Maybe the concern is he does only have 1 year remaining on his contract, but given the New York Rangers' current cap situation, I think they should be able to re-sign Zibanejad easily after the season. I really think Zibanejad would make a fantastic captain. It feels like whenever I see him, whether it's in a clip on Twitter of him just walking into the arena or a clip from an interview, it seems like he's always smiling. He's extremely well spoken, and overall I feel like he just carries himself very well, and this past season he showed a lot of heart and determination, battling back from having COVID, which led to him getting off to a pretty slow start to the season, but he didn't use that as an excuse. He still ended up with 50 points. In my opinion, Mika Zibanejad just embodies everything that a captain should be, so he would be my choice as the next captain of the New York Rangers. Moving on to the Columbus Blue Jackets, I won't spend too much time on this one because I feel like it's pretty clear cut that the next captain should and will probably be Zach Werenski. Over the past decade, the Blue Jackets have had a really hard time getting stars to commit to their team long term. A lot of their best players have just ended up leaving. However, that is not the case when it comes to Zach Werenski. He did commit to the Columbus Blue Jackets long term. I believe he signed there through the 2027-28 season or something crazy like that. He's still relatively young, especially for defensemen being only 24 years old, but he's already played 5 seasons in the NHL with Columbus, north of 300 NHL games played. Zach Werenski most definitely should be the next captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Next up we have the Calgary Flames, and this is kind of a tough one. I don't really feel like there's an obvious answer. I feel like the most likely scenario we see happen here is the Calgary Flames do not name a captain this upcoming season, and they kind of wait it out, see how things play out, who steps up and becomes the leader now in the absence of Mark Giordano. And honestly, I feel like that would be a smart thing to do here. One of the reasons why I think that is because Johnny Gaudreau is set to become a UFA at the end of the season, and he's probably a prime candidate for the captaincy. I imagine they want to wait and see how that plays out first. Anyways, I have to make a prediction though. I got a feeling it's gonna end up being Matt Tkachuk, but I think I'm actually gonna go with Elias Lindholm, who I feel like is a pretty criminally underrated player. You can make the case that he's the best overall player on the Calgary Flames, or at least has been over the past couple of seasons. He's under contract for the next 3 seasons. He's a player who can play multiple positions. He can slide over to center if you need him to. He can also play in the wing. He can play both special teams, and on top of putting up a really good offensive production since becoming a member of the Calgary Flames, he's also extremely good defensively. Now obviously I can't speak to what Elias Lindholm is like behind closed doors in the locker room if he's a very vocal guy, but just watching him play, he leads by example. I think he'd be a great captain. Next up, the Arizona Coyotes, a team that was obviously left captainless after trading Oliver Ekman-Larsson to the Vancouver Canucks in that massive salary cap dumping insane blockbuster trade that happened earlier in the offseason. Similar to what I said about the Buffalo Sabres earlier in this video, how there's a really short list of candidates for who could be their next captain. I feel like it's kind of the same deal with the Arizona Coyotes, except the list isn't just one player. I would throw Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller in the conversation, but to me this was a pretty easy one. I think the next captain of the Arizona Coyotes should be Jacob Chychrun, a first round pick by the Coyotes back in the 2016 draft. He's already played 5 NHL seasons, this past one being by far his best. He really broke out and became not just the best defenseman on the team, but one of the best defensemen in the league. Offensively, defensively, he was dynamite. He's only 23. I imagine he's going to be an Arizona Coyote for a very long time. In my opinion, he's the obvious choice to be their next captain. And that now leaves us with one NHL team left to talk about that currently does not have a captain, the Ottawa Senators. And I feel like this one, it comes down to 2 players, Brady Tkachuk and Thomas Chabot, with Brady Tkachuk being the most likely candidate. Now obviously Brady Tkachuk is still without a contract. He is a restricted free agent, and it was reported that he apparently turned down an 8-year $64 million extension offer from the Ottawa Senators, which I think is kind of crazy, so I don't know what's going on there. But whenever he does sign, which it's inevitable, he is going to sign eventually, I think the contract extension may come with him getting the captaincy. Honestly, I think it could happen pretty soon. So that's who I think is going to get the captaincy, and I also think that would be a really good choice. He would probably be my pick as well. He's a player who, plays with a chip on his shoulder. He's probably not loved around the league, but I don't think he's as hated as his brother Matthew. He's really embraced the community since being drafted 4th overall by the Senators back in 2018. It's also not hard to tell that all of his teammates love him. He's most likely going to be a Senator for the next decade, be a huge part of that team. Maybe not the best player, maybe not the player who's going to put up the most points, but I think he's really going to be the straw that stirs the drink there in Ottawa for the foreseeable future. So that's what I'm going to go with. I think Brady Tkachuk should be the next captain of the Ottawa Senators, and I think that's most likely what's going to happen too. So that is going to do it for today's video. Those were my picks on who I think should be the next captain for all of the NHL teams that currently do not have one. Now, of course, those were all just my opinions. I'm really interested to hear what you guys think. If you disagree with any of my picks, if you agree with them, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And of course, if you did enjoy today's video, please leave a like on it. It helps out the channel more than you think. And of course, if you're new and you're a hockey fan and you want to see more videos just like this, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free.